Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 101st episode of our first YouTube run through the House of Light expansion for Book of Hours, playing as the Archaeologist. We've got a bunch of books that we've been reading, as we said in the previous, or not said, but as we wrote for the previous episode. It's the fall semester, so we're hitting the books. I do have a somewhat tight window in which to do everything that I want. So I want to get Denzel up to a point where he can open up the Smoky Chamber. We wouldn't know this if we hadn't played before, but this turns out to be Governor Collar's office, and it has all sorts of interesting things inside of it to see. But the first thing we want to do is read the books that we've already put the time into. So, The Intimations of Skin, fiendishly complex, weirdly distorted illustrations of Congress and anatomy by the haunted visionary painter Niels Fredrik Malsker. Malsker illuminates the evolutions of the names of the Grail with unfortunate clarity. It seems that a lovely who consumes an ivory becomes an ivory, a lovely who consumes a thirstly becomes a thirstly, a lovely who consumes a name of another hour might take its place. In the penultimate illustration, a lovely grapples with a fungoid knot that can only be a name of the crowned growth. The lovely's mouth and other portals gape wide, and the growth name is already partially engulfed. But it seems that Malsker couldn't bring himself to illustrate the result, and the final illustration is only a scrawled, bloated obscurity. So that's a beguiling melody for us. We'll use that to level up strings and songs when the time comes. We have a seventh voice, Samuel Savage's cycle of comic poems about a band of players who double as footpads seeking a seventh member. Sir Snatchsea is distracted by Mistress Twitshell kissing Mistress Netherpearls and fails to see Master Magglepie making off with the players' funds. The whole enterprise almost ends in disaster when Mistress Wandereye's family insults her costume and she burns down their house in a fit of pique, but the day is finally saved by the seventh voice, a wandering bookmonger who returns the band's lost music. An Exorcist's Field Manual, a practical guide to troublesome dead, grounded in theory but with a clear focus on their disposal by the redoubtable detective Ostiary Willock of the Suppression Bureau. The dead usually avoid light as the most immediate manifestation of eternity, which has no place for death. However, those dead uplifted by gold, that is to say touched by an actinic theoplasma, happily bought about in daylight and are perhaps strongest at noon. If you are dead but uplifted by green, that's the Ringyu's blessing. The crowned growth offers a similar but nastier benefit. This is how burgeoning risen come about, but there are different degrees of sentience and freedom depending on which growths are involved. The consciousness of one uplifted by green is always greatly altered, though. They never really seem like the same person. They may have dregs of their original souls, but these are often replaced by something else. The upshot, invariably, is that they need to be set firmly on fire. Okay, there's our pear pie. It's now a floor pie. Once more with feeling. All right, that's it. Video's done. Better now. So I have another minute left in the day. I think before I go to the Sweet Bones, I'd maybe like to work out a game plan with my remaining elements of the soul. So the first priority, as I said, would be the Cyclen Eclipse. And I think our only real option here would be the Tryst. So another fruit plucked from Knowledge's tree. So I don't think it will be too much of a hardship to try and bring up strings and songs. So let's set aside 2 Faust for that. Let's actually think about what desk we're trying to do this at. So I can do What Does Not Bark. And we'll do... I'm trying to remember if we've done the Geminiad or Rose of Hypatia. Let's do Rose of Hypatia. And then I need a third. We could probably just go for a cheerful ditty again. Although I'd need to find an appropriate desk. Right, well, an appropriate desk and an appropriate element of the soul. Let's try and make something of the fet. I actually think I've closed myself off from that. Shucks. I really don't want to use the metal if I can avoid it. So I could give up a health. I would really rather not, but I've kind of forced myself into a bit of a corner here. Because in the end, the health can be used to make food. Although we have more health than I know what to do with. Okay, and let's read the Peruvian Diaries. So that gets us strings and songs. Now, there's a reasonable question here. Do I want to try and move up disciplines of the hammer? Because we've got 1, 3, 2... Yeah, so I mean, I certainly have, in theory, the elements of the soul to move on that. Now, one thing I do want to do is get my... hell. I want to try and get my old wound back. You know, this might work. Yep. Okay, so what this really boils down to here is, can I get 4 elements of the soul and keep my metal by the end of the day? So I could use... I could get Torg's Cleansing for 1. Okay, so there's like a theoretical possibility here, but I'm not actually convinced that it's worth going for. And a lot of this just kind of comes down to what rooms are occupied. So I think the better path here, I'll make the most of what I kind of have at the moment. So we will, what do I do here? So definitely cooking. So I think that'll use up my core. My options here: roast potatoes, roast potatoes, poached mackerel, or orange jumble. Oh, I'm going to need to get the potatoes out of one of the sacks, so I should remember that for my available elements of the soul. Maybe we'll use the metal for that. Okay, so let's make the orange jumble just because that's a little bit easier than the others. Okay. With that in mind, we can do the fet for the moor. Clamber up into the long reaches of the moors behind the village. Lean into the wind's fluttering fist. If I know what to look for, I might find something among the rocks. Now, Crowcross Sands, we don't need just Trist for that. We can also use fet. So, although we still have the option, if I want, I can employ any of these. I will not be employing strings. Or actually, yeah, I could because it's hard, but we definitely don't want to. Might as well do Tradis Mahira just to change it up. And then I do want to use the health. One, I'd like to get a replacement Honey Scar Jasmine. And at this point, I don't think it would hurt to... I'll get some grapes in this case, but I think I also maybe want to consider sacks of... Oh, sorry, what am I saying? No, I need to get the sack of vegetables because I've already got the grapes here. But yeah, I have a lot of vegetables already, but I do think I'm going to want to get replacements, especially because I may be feeding the chickens with it. Okay, that gives me enough to work with. We've got 30 seconds before I'm going to need to use this Fost. And actually, the more I think about it, the less likely it is I'm going to be able to use this metal to get the vegetables. We'll see, but I should allow for the possibility that I'm going to miss that. All right, the sustenance has boosted their aspects appropriately. So just to double check, so we've got element of the soul. No, this is what he accepts. Okay. So we've got the beverage. So collaboration, we've got element of the soul, beverage, memory, sustenance, tool. So done, 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 done. The copper wire's the only remaining option. Additional supplies. I can offer my assistant metals, mundane or exotic. This will increase their aspects. They'll keep any of the metal that's left over. All right. And I think we're going to skip doing anything with the sweet bones. I mean, so there's one small argument here, which would be I could restore an element of the soul, but in this case, I think we have what we need as far as the elements are concerned. I do want to make sure that I use the cheerful ditty and the beguiling melody, otherwise we're going to lose it when we finish the other readings, but other than that, we should be good. All right, the skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. So, strings and songs. Oh. I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. So yeah, only real regret here is that the... Ooh, that was almost bad, rather bad. All right, so let's get to work on the smoky chamber. The room here, the room is almost untouched, but little fires still burn here, blithely ignoring the absence of fuel, filling the room with 7 years of smoke. So let's talk with Connie. She is going to want either moon or sky, and there's not really a strong preference either way, simply because we, like they're both at the same level, basically. So actually, Pale Lady and Prince of Wine seems like a good option here, but... Librarian, I'm here on bureau business. I can identify my visitors' interests and satisfy them with an appropriate book. Alternatively, if they know a language I'd like to learn, I can offer payment. My visitor has questions about hidden things. The answers can be found in my collection. So a few seconds left on the memories. Perugian Diaries. In 1907, at the age of 18, Christopher Olopoli left Strathcoyne's household to study theology at the University of Perugia in Italy, enrolling under the name Christopher Strathcoyne. For 4 years since his adoption from a Bristol orphanage, Olopoli served as Strathcoyne's pupil and protege, but his relationship with this austere and secretive man was always complicated. His journal confides, I still think Fraser's intentions are good, certainly he agrees, but I have never understood the final goal of his investigations. He was never prepared to enlighten me, and good intentions or not, I can no longer bear this dream of eyes. We have agreed to part almost amicably. Olopoli left Perugia in 1909 without completing his degree. He had long lost interest in his studies, and the latter half of his journal is concerned with his studies of Umbrian folk songs and notes towards his own compositions, which are of widely varying quality. One of the better ones, In the Marshes of Night, suggests he visited the site of Old Lake Fucinus near Ortuccio. The skill is now level 3, its power aspects have also increased. What does not bark? Alexander Props writes warily of Calyptra, a law, principle, or society which prevents the dissemination of dangerous knowledge. Calyptra, like the planet that occludes the star, or the Doylean dog that fails to bark, can be identified only by its absence. Even the name, I think, must be a mask. Calyptra is said to make exceptions specifically for the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. Does it make those exceptions so the Hours can make use of them? So there's the Storm. And the Rose of Hypatia, a volume of collected teachings of the Sisterhood of the Knot, that arcane contemplative order that existed in all histories, but in some was very powerful indeed. This was recorded by Hypatia and dedicated to Saint Nympha. Saint Nympha is described as not born but cultivated, the sentience that became the saint. Hypatia indicates inhabited a sinner's corpse in order to enable that sinner's redemption. Not all the dead enter the mansis by the winter door. Not all the dead enter the mansis at all. Okay, so I'm going to say, in terms of priorities, the leveling up strings and songs is the number one priority. Another fruit plucked from Knowledge's tree. I am still going to risk the medal for opening up the opening up one of the sacks of vegetables, identifying it as potatoes. And if I need to restore it with the money, fair enough. Okay, craft an old wound, move gingerly while the pain lasts. And there's our orange jumble. I'm not going to bother making anything else for tonight. We don't have the time. So again, the logic about waiting out the salon is I should be able to navigate down Nyctodromy at least, which will get me some more elements of the soul. I think that's worth the risk. There isn't like a huge risk for doing a salon later. It's really just the time that it takes for me to use the memories that I generate. Okay, unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. Basket of apples, notoriously hard to take just one bite. I'll live with it. More mackerel. I wonder if I can somehow... You know what? We could probably... Yeah, put that on the shelf here. We're going to make poached mackerel anyway. Honey Scar Jasmine. We don't really need to make that tea right away, but it's nice to have the option. And another sack of vegetables. In fact, that'll be the one that I identify right away. So the skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. Identify as potatoes. These are potatoes. Spectacular. So 5 seconds. We will definitely have that done in time. So tomorrow we can focus on leveling up Disciplines of the Hammer. I probably want to find another memory for that. So the Book of Thrones... Oh wait, that's... well, I mean, I can use that for Auroral Contemplations. That may even be a good idea for me to do. But let's focus on the actual task at hand. So, which of you... Okay, Carmine... Ooh, right. I think I'm actually one short. But that's maybe not a deal breaker. The other possibility would be if I find a forge or edge to work with in here. White Book of Brittany, or the manner in which the alchemist was spared. Well, good luck on that one. White Book of Brittany seems like a more likely candidate here. Although even then, I'm actually one short, so maybe I do take my risk with the Carmine Petal. And actually, the other thing that's nice about that is it gives me a chance to move Sickle and Eclipse up the one as well. So yes, Carmine Petal is what I want. And I don't think I can bring Hindsight overnight. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to want to... At the start of tomorrow, I'm going to want to Forge Memory. I'm going to want Okay, so number one, we're definitely not doing the Salon tomorrow. We will prep for it, though. I'm going to want a forge memory. I'm going to want a... God, I'm really running out of space for this stuff. We'll just put these down below for now. So yeah, forge memory, and I may have to give up an element of the soul for... Cool. Oh yes, also, did I put Natalia in her place yet? I don't think I did, and she's over here. So it did say for 7 shards. Or, yeah, no, it was 7 shards. Natalia Brulot, 5th Librarian of Hush House. Anish with a plaque, who was denied victory, though never defeated. This bust is cast in iron. All right, let's read the description. The Crucible Tower Governor's Office. The Governor's Office, quietly luxurious, at least by the standards of the Kukerbet. Collars was devoted to his cause and his service, but he did insist on his little pleasures. It has 3 uncatalogued nocturnal books. It has the Governor's Desk, a desk as severe and practical as Collars himself, lantern, edge, moth, and forge. So very, very helpful desk, just given the composition of elements of the soul that I have. The typewriter, so this is a permanent ink, basically. Typewriter. Now they call it unromantic. In 50 years, it'll be the most romantic thing in the room. We've got a quire of paper, creamy smooth, eagerly awaiting ink. We've got a genealogical chart. 6 years ago, King George's heir, Edward, killed him in a quarrel over Edward's womanizing. The kingdom was saved from constitutional collapse by Henry Huddleston Abney Hastings, 13th Count of Loudon, who claimed descent, Loudon? Yeah, anyways, who claimed descent through the Plantagenet line. Heaven lift the new king. We've got Sir David Green. This bust is carved from reddish granite. And there we go. So that gives us an opportunity to go to the Stifling Chamber, 13 Forge, 13 Winter, so more likely we'll use Mr. Kill for that right now. The Mazed Cell, 14 Grail, 14 Moth, 14 Scale. Very difficult for us to get through there right now, and then we already had the option of the Sealed Cell. So if I have a surplus, I can definitely focus on the books first. But yes, for those of you who have not seen a full run of Book of Hours before, now you know the new king, who the new king is. And Connie just finished with the book, How Unexpected. You've satisfied your visitor and earned a reward, but the more they learn, the harder they'll be to satisfy in the future. So nice to have Connie's card. I don't quite want to translate that into the book yet, just because I already have an occult scrap I haven't used. But we can definitely find more useful things to do for today. So first of all, let's make some goodies. Roast potatoes, a dish with edge, forge, heart, and winter. I did say I wanted the carmine petals, so we will use our shaft to get a foresight. I wish I remembered which of these. I'm going to try on resonance. And I don't think it would hurt to bring in... Well, actually, you know what? Let's see what the weather brings before I try and bring in Denzel. Okay, so a foggy day is definitely something I should pay attention to. So 14... So, sorry, I should take a minute to think of this. I don't believe... So Timothy is Lantern and Knock. Mrs. Kill is Grail and Heart. Mr. Kill is Winter and Sky. Denzel is Forge and Edge. And right now we have the Orchard Keeper. So we don't have a source of moon right now. Well, unless we get a special visitor. Fair enough. So the best use that I have for the fog is... Well, I mean, it depends, actually. So there theoretically is a use for the moon, although in reality I can just use the Wormwood Dream whenever I want. But this could save me some trouble using the metals. So let's just have a little peek at what we can do with Reverend Timothy. So I believe he only gets 1 knock. So Shopped would get me 2, so that's a total of 3. Now we don't have a tool that gives knock, which is a problem. So memory would be 3, which gets me up to 6. So basically the proposition in front of me right now is that I'm somehow going to come up with another 6 knock between... I guess I can add a candle to the mix if I want. Okay, so it's actually not as... It's not quite as hard as it seems at first. So like game chips, for instance, would be a food that I could give knock with the candle. And then, of course, Sacrament Acite is a big one. I mean, the Sacrament Acite is sort of 6 on its own. But I guess when it comes down to it, it's really hard to see this fog as a uniquely... It's kind of hard to see this as a drop everything kind of opportunity. What I probably want to use this for instead would be if I had a difficult memory to level up, or if I had a difficult book to read that required either a lot of knock or a lot of moon. And of course, I already have a lot of knock and a lot of moon in terms of my my skills. So I think the better thing for me to do is focus on making... Yeah, I'll focus on making the... Well, okay, sorry. There is actually one other thing I can try and do here. Just for the sake of the argument. Okay, not a huge surprise there. Yeah, so that gets me Sacrament Acite. Is it helpful that I'm doing it this way? I don't know. Seems to me like I'm giving up more by... Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity. I'll take it because I can. Okay. Seems to me, though, that we want to talk with Denzel. Whether or not I use him to... whether or not I use him to open up another room is kind of beside the point. I do want to level up. Actually, the other thing I should keep in mind is I should spend the minute to get what I need for Disciplines of the Hammer. So we'll use the Tryst for a start. And this one, it should actually just be a plain old, you know, get the memories that I need. We don't need to get fancy with this one. So I'll get the Fear from the Leonine Tantra. That's 1. I'll use the Whist. So it's Forge and Edge. So Regrets will work. I don't remember where we left on this, so I'll do 5 letters on memory. Better to use... I can use the FOST here. So we can use the pattern. We're on Raptures of Forculus now. And one more. In this case, I'll use the metal just because I have a surplus of it. So that gets me a start, obviously. There'll probably be a bit of overlap with Denzel, but I think that's just the cost of doing business. Okay, so I'm going to cook a bunch of stuff. We are going to have to read The Carmine Petal. Excuse me. What else do we want to try and do today? I mean, write the invitations, but that's not the hardest thing for me to do. It wouldn't be a bad idea. So we've already kind of got the game plan in terms of leveling up the things that I need. Wait a minute. I'm actually a little worried about the fact that I'm reading the Well, no. Yeah, we'll be fine. Okay, so Carmine Petal. I'll say a stretch goal would be to get Denzel to open another room. But I can also see spending the time doing gardening is an equally good use of the time. I'm going to see if I can shuffle in a few more of these books. Maybe, but... Okay, after the Carmine Petal. I really don't want to go in there. All right, fair enough. Yeah, okay. I'll confess I feel a little lost in terms of where I want to direct my effort immediately after we get the book that I want to read. But I do think I'm going to be occupied enough making the last of the food. It's actually worth remembering, too. I should actually probably invite the people involved with the Royal Endeavor. So Corso, Hokabald, and Serena, I should probably bring in today. The reason for that is whoever I decide to do the event with, they're gonna want to stay overnight. Yeah, so we need to stay overnight to get the end of that event, which means the other two who I don't pursue the further story with, they kind of need to rest at the house. Okay, so yeah, that gives me enough. So we'll write 3 invitations. I will try and resolve the event tonight. We'll finish the prep for the salon. We'll get more for Disciplines of the Hammer. I think I've got enough to make the day work with. The only thing I feel a little reluctant about is I'd really like to have more for Hushery than I do. So at the very least, like something that I can put into Hushery 5. So I may try reading another book, although I did also just use up my whist. So I don't know. We'll see. I can see it going one way or another. But all of that will be handled in the next stream. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.